Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Spurs Up Show, the best Gamecocks podcast on the internet. Today is Thursday, July the 16th, 2020. On today's show, we continue along with the position unit previews today. I'm breaking down the Gamecocks wide receivers heading in the 2020 season. I'll look back at 2019. We'll also talk about the wide receiver group, meet the wide receivers, talk about the most approved, best overall. Season will be successful if I'll give my overall grade for the group and much, much more. Also, tons of news and notes to get into, your listener questions. And we have a fantastic interview, great conversation with Gamecocks commit, 3-star prospect, and Gamecocks commit Jacobi Wright, committed to Frank Martin and the Gamecocks basketball team. I'll talk to him just about the recruiting process, his relationship with Frank Martin, why he chose South Carolina, much, much more. Again, a fantastic conversation with Jacobi Wright, and it's all brought to you by our friends over at SeatGeek. SeatGeek, the best ticket buying app by far, the only ticket buying app I use, and the only one I recommend. Go download the SeatGeek app or go to SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code SPURSUP. You're going to save $20 off your first purchase. Guys, sports are on the way back. I'm optimistic. I'm thinking football's coming back. NFL is going to be here. MLB, NBA, MLS, PGA, all of it. All of it's coming back. And eventually, fingers crossed, we're going to have fans in the stands. We're going to be sitting in there watching these games. When you have that opportunity to do so, you want to make sure you can get your tickets safe, secure. We're not going to be scalping anymore, right? Social distancing. I don't want to be exchanging tickets with somebody I don't know who they are. They might have the Rona. I don't know. SeatGeek is going to be the way to do it. They got a great ticket rating system which rates the tickets for you based on the type of deal you're getting. So never again, do you have to scalp or do you have to worry that you're overpaying? You know, you're going to know exactly where you're sitting. You're going to know exactly what you're getting, the bang for your buck. You're going to know, hey, am I getting a deal? Am I overpaying? What's the whole deal here? SeatGeek tells you. They do all that work for you. All you have to worry about, guys, is going to their website or going on the app. You find the ticket, you find the best deal, whatever you want to pay, whatever it is, you're going to see exactly what you're getting. Bada bing, bada boom, you click the buy button. They've taken care of everything else for you. It's the new way to buy tickets, and I think in the future it's going to be the only way to buy tickets. Again, everything's going to go digital. You're going to need to do it, and again, SeatGeek is the best way to do it for you getting your tickets. So again, that's our friends at SeatGeek. Go download the SeatGeek app or go to SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code SPURSUP, that's SPRSUP, to save $20 off your first purchase. Let's get it. What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. I'm Chris Phillips, your host of the Spurs Up Show. As always, appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a packed show. Very, very excited today. Talk about one of my favorite positions on the football field, and that is the wide receiver position. Continue along with the position unit previews, breaking down the Gamecocks wide receivers going in the 2020 football season. Also have a ton of other stuff to get to. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, staying safe, staying healthy. Guys, I don't know what it is, but I, for one, and I'm on a cloud right now. You can call it ignorance. Maybe ignorance is bliss. You can say I'm a crazy optimist, whatever. I think football is happening. I think football is going to happen. I am so sure of it. I am so sure. And I'm speaking it out into the world. I'm speaking it in the universe. I'm putting it out there, speaking it into existence. Football is going to happen. I'll tell you guys, if nothing else, you do that on the daily. You speak that on the daily. You speak that positive affirmation out there. Hey, football's going to happen. Football's going to happen. You're going to be in a better mood if nothing else, but I'm speaking it out there. I'm putting in the universe. I think football's going to happen. So I'm optimistic. I'm positive. I'm fired up. A week from today also, we have pro sports returning with the MLB. I'm very pumped about that just to get sports back on TV. So I'm excited. I'm fired up on this Thursday. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Before we get into everything really quickly, as always, if you have not done so, please be sure to go rate the show. Please be sure to subscribe. If you haven't done so, whether you're on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, go leave your thoughts, your feedback. Go leave a 5-star review. For those of you that have already done so, thank you so much. But if you have not done so, take 5 seconds out of your day. Go leave 5 stars Or like I said, if you want to leave feedback, whatever it may be, positive or negative, there's things you want to see on the show or things you don't want to see, go leave it there. It's the best place to do it. And again, I appreciate everyone that's already done so. And then again, if you're listening to this podcast and you're not subscribed, don't know what you're doing, you want to be sure you're getting the notifications of when the podcast drops. So make sure you hammer that subscribe button. Also, if you're not following us on all social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, if you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please go subscribe to that. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Please go subscribe to that. Just be sure to follow, subscribe, like, whatever, the Spurs Up Show and everything. But again, those of you already done so, I truly do appreciate it. All right, like I said, fired up for today's show. Love talking about wide receivers. It's always been one of my favorite positions on the field. These are the guys, these are the playmakers. These are your big play threats. These are the dudes that are scoring the touchdowns more often than not. Really excited to talk about this group when it comes to Gamecocks because it's a very intriguing group, and it's definitely a group that has a lot of questions coming in this 2020 football season as well. Let's first take a look back. Let's take a look back at 2019, the statistics. South Carolina coming in the 2019 season was obviously looking at replacing Deebo Samuel. I think that was the big question mark and the big storyline coming in the 2019 season. Bryan Edwards was expected to fill in and be the number one guy, and fill in he did. 71 catches, 816 yards, 6 touchdowns. His numbers would have been even better had he not gotten injured near the end of the year, but he set basically every single receiving record for South Carolina, set the overall, I believe, touchdowns record for them. I think he did not go a game that he played at South Carolina without a reception, which is just insane when you think about it. Just truly insane when you think about it. So Bryan Edwards, again, leading the way last year for South Carolina, followed up by Shi Smith, 63 catches, 489 yards, 2 touchdowns. Just going down the list here now, Josh Vann, 19 catches, 171 yards. Chavis Dawkins had 10 catches for 98 yards. Xavier Legette was a true freshman last year, had 9 catches for 80 yards and a touchdown. Ortre Smith, 9 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown. Chad Terrell, 4 catches for 56 yards. And Dak Joyner, who changed from quarterback to wide receiver, as we all remember very vividly, 6 catches for 46 yards. So an interesting year for the wide receiver group, and definitely they were impacted by Jake Bentley's injury. Obviously, Ryan Holinsky being a true freshman, I think definitely made a big impact on the numbers this group saw as well. But Bryan Edwards certainly leading the way. That is the big loss for this group. Let's meet the wide receivers, though, going in the 2020 football season because I think it is a talented group. A lot of question marks, but a talented group. We'll go down the list here. We start out Trey Adkins, the sophomore from Simpsonville, South Carolina. Reed Charpia. Oh, that's an interesting name. Reed Charpia, freshman out of Columbia. Randricus Davis, the senior out of Atlanta. Tyquan Johnson, the freshman. DeCarron Joyner, sophomore. Xavier Legette, sophomore. Ortre Smith, junior. Shi Smith, senior. Chad Terrell, Jr., Josh Vann, Jr., and Mike Wyman, the freshman. Another guy I want to add on there that I know he's not on the roster right now because I don't think he was a spring enrollee, but Rico Powers, the true freshman, another guy I'm really excited about. I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. You guys know how I do on this. Most approved, best overall, season will be successful if overall grade. So let's jump right into it. And I want to start, obviously, with the most approved. Now, this one's interesting because I think you could pick multiple guys for this. Because, I'll be honest, I think Shi Smith has a lot to prove because he's taking over as the number one wideout. Is he ready to do that? And I think that's a storyline on its own. But to me, when you take a look at this receiver group, I couldn't narrow it down to one guy, and I'll explain. Because both of these guys, in my opinion, have so much to prove to me. And they left so much on the table last year. And that is Ortre Smith and Josh Vann. Both of these guys massively underachieved last year. And both of these guys are going to be in your rotation. Most likely your 2 and 3 receivers or your 3 and 4 or whatever, depending on where Xavier Legette falls in this rotation. These guys are going to be in your top 4 receivers. I think there's no doubt, unless they're getting beat out by true freshmen, which, listen, it might happen. But these 2 guys are going to be expected to contribute. Last year, a combined 28 catches, 240 yards, and a touchdown. That is simply not good enough for these 2 guys. We know Ortre Smith, very highly regarded recruit, had a really good freshman season, fell off as a sophomore, dealt with injuries last year. All I heard about Ortre Smith, guys, was this is the best he's ever looked in camp. He's super healthy. He's ready to go. He's going to tear it up this year. You know, all that that preseason camp talk that we get so used to. And listen, I don't know if he was hurt. I don't know what the deal was, but he couldn't stay on the field. And he couldn't make a contribution. Again, 9 catches for 69 yards and a touchdown. That's what most guys do in a game. That was his season last year. So, again, I don't know if it's that he wasn't 100%, but something's got to give. He's got to be able to stay on the field. He's too gifted an athlete. And I know he dealt with something in his knee, and he's definitely dealt with his injury problems. And if he can be fully healthy, I think he could be a major contributor. I certainly do. I certainly think he could be a major contributor. But it's put up or shut up time for him, no doubt. And the same goes for Josh Vann. Listen, Josh Vann has even less of an excuse. Josh Vann, 19 for 171, 0 touchdowns. I know he was the third option, sometimes the fourth option in that offense. I get it. But, guys, Josh Vann at times couldn't catch a cold last year. And we're talking about a guy, listen, I was super excited for Josh Vann when he committed to South Carolina. 4-star prospect out of Tucker, Georgia. His highlight tape, circus catches all over the place. This dude made insane catches. And to me, he simply has not lived up to the hype. So I think one of the biggest questions going in the season and why these two guys both have the most to prove in my mind is because, again, it's put up or shut up time for them. I think it's going to be either these guys are going to go out there and contribute and make plays, or they're going to get passed on the depth chart. You know, you hate to put all that pressure on a true freshman, but again, Mike Wyman, Rico Powers. I love Xavier Legette. I've been high on him all offseason. I talked about Legette all offseason. Think he can be a big-time playmaker for South Carolina. What does a guy like a Dak Joyner do? Could he fit into the rotation? Could he move up? You know, so it's just a shame because both of these guys, I think, have a lot of talent. I think both of them have a lot of talent. But for whatever reason, it just hasn't happened. And now, listen, you have a new wide receivers coach with Brian McClendon leaving. So what do these guys both do? Again, you take a look at the roster. They're both juniors. It's your junior season. It's time to be a contributor. Again, South Carolina's going to be depending on these guys. Ryan Helinski or whoever's under center is going to be depending on these guys. Or Trey Smith. I mean, you look at the measurables for a guy like Ortre. 6'4", 220. That big body wide receiver that really South Carolina desperately needs Ortre Smith to step up, to replace a guy like a Bryan Edwards. I mean, I was very excited about Ortre Smith last year, no doubt. Extremely excited about Ortre. And then again, Josh Vann was very excited about him too, but both these guys I thought massively underachieved. And again, Ortre Smith dealing with his injuries, I get it. But all we heard last year was how healthy he was coming in the season. So both of these guys, again, both these guys are absolutely due for big-time seasons. And South Carolina, this offense is going to need these two dudes to step up. You just have to. Because, you know, all they've been to this point is names. They really haven't done anything of substance, either one of them. And they're just, to me, they were too good of prospects and they're too talented of players to combine for 28 catches for 240 yards and a touchdown, which is what they did last year. Just no excuse. Just no excuse for that. So Ortre Smith and Josh Vann, my most approved amongst this wide receiver group. Best overall, it's no surprise here. It's Shi Smith. You got to go with Shi coming in as the senior, big play threat. I think he has skills, you know, kind of like a Deebo Samuel. I really do. You know, I picked Shi Smith to be the playmaking threat last year I did in the offseason. I picked Shi Smith to be the guy that was going to replace Deebo as the playmaker in the offense. I don't think it ever really happened. You know, there were some flashes. His 2 touchdowns were the throw that Ryan Helinski had against Alabama where he really threaded the needle and Shi Smith caught that ball in the end zone. And then the first play against Tennessee where he takes the slant. And I think you got to see sort of his athleticism and his game-breaking type ability in that Tennessee game on that first play. That's what Shi Smith can do. He can take a 7-yard slant and go 80 yards for a touchdown. That's the type of impact. That's the type of big playability he has. But, you know, 63 catches, 489 yards, 2 touchdowns last year. I think this is one of the more underrated storylines, and a storyline that's not being talked about enough. But I definitely want to bring it to the forefront since we're talking about wide receivers. One of the biggest storylines and question marks heading into this season is Shi Smith ready to be the number one receiver? Is he ready to be a number one? Because, again, Shi Smith has never had to be a number one. There's always been Debo. There's always been Bryan. Now it's his show, being the senior. If Shi Smith has an off game, these receivers probably are going to have an off game. That was the one thing I'll say. Bryan Edwards, man, he never had a bad day, really. He never had, like, just a complete off game. South Carolina could always depend on Bryan Edwards. He was so dependable. Again, had a catch in every game he played in his career, which, again, is nuts to say out loud. But, again, I think it's an extremely underrated storyline going into this season. Is Shi Smith ready to be the number one guy? Point blank. Is he ready to take over that number one receiver role and fill in the role that Bryan Edwards left? Again, he's a much different type of player. Speed guy, which I think can be fine. I mean, that's fine. Listen, I mean, you look back to some of the great Spurrier teams. Some of those teams depended on Alshon-type receivers. Some of those offenses were dependent upon big body, not quite as quick, but big body guys that go up, get the football. And then a lot of those offenses later, you think about Ace Sanders, you think about Bruce Ellington, Nick Jones, depended a lot more on the speed guys, smaller but faster. So it can definitely work either way. So again, the skill set is different. But is Shi Smith ready to take over that number one receiver role? He's going to have to. So it'll be interesting to see. Let's move into the season will be successful if, in my opinion, the season will be successful if a true number two wideout and a true number two big play threat out of this group emerges. Listen, do I think Shi Smith is the perfect wide receiver? No, I think he's a very good player. Potential is extremely high. I will say this. I do think it's funny. Actually, I'll save this. I'll save this because we're going to talk about this a little bit later in the show. I'll save that. But I think Shi Smith can be a true number one. I think he can be that big play threat. I think he can attract two defenders. Like, I think he has that type of talent. But it's going to be really tough sledding for South Carolina in the passing game if it can't find a true number two guy. Like I said before, I'm very high on Xavier Legette. I think he could be the next dude for South Carolina, the next big-time playmaker. Already talked about Ortre Smith and Josh Vann. One of them has got to step up, if not both. One of them has got to step up. Again, they're too good of prospects, too good of players to not be contributors in this offense and on this team. They just are. But I think for the season to be successful, you need to find that true number two guy. You need to find that guy to complement Shi. Listen, again, I think Shi, he's got some stuff. I think he's got a lot to prove this year. But Shi was always just good enough to take the pressure off Bryan Edwards completely. It was one of those deals where, hey, go ahead. You want to double Bryan? Go right ahead. Shi Smith can beat you with his speed over the top. He kept defenses honest to where they couldn't gang up on Bryan Edwards. And I think Bryan did the same thing with Debo. Very much so. Bryan definitely took some of the pressure off Debo and made defenses pay when they wanted to double team him. So for this passing game, because, again, I've talked about before, I think it's going to be a run-heavy offense, but you're going to have to be able to pass the ball. What opens up the running game? A solid passing game, and vice versa. But you got to have that number two receiver. You got to have that number two threat. You got to have that number two to complement Shi Smith to make this passing game go, in my opinion. The overall grade for the unit, listen, I know some of you are going to get pissed off. That's completely fine. But I'm going to call it as I see it. The overall grade for the receiver, I'm going to give him a D+. It hurts to say that, too. It hurts to say that. But this group, this is the weakest group of Gamecock receivers in who knows. I mean, it's been a while since the receiver group was this depleted, if you will. With this few of proven guys, right? I mean, dude, listen. Listen to these stats. Listen to these stats. Talking about pure wide receivers. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about tight ends or anything like that. Pure wide receivers. Your top 5 pass catchers, top 5 leaders in pass catching last year. Okay. 3 of them were wide receivers. 1 was a tight end. You lose Bryan Edwards, who was your leader. You have Shi Smith back, 489 yards, 2 Ds. Your next leading receiver last year was Josh Vann with 19 for 171. Outside of that, you don't bring back a guy that caught more than had more than 100 yards receiving from last year. So there are a lot of questions. And to be honest with you, I don't think this group needs its young talent to step up. Mike Wyman, Rico Powers. You know, the Gamecocks offense as a whole, to me, is going to depend a lot on these young skill players. Marshawn Lloyd, again, Wyman Powers. It's going to depend a lot on those guys. They're going to need to step up and grow up fast and play in a hurry. Bottom line. Because, again, you can't really count on Ortre Smith and Josh Vann that they're, you'd like to think so. Again, I just keep saying it. They're just, to me, they're too good of players. Like, I can't fathom how these guys have fallen off. But you can't necessarily depend on them, so you're going to need those young guys to step up. But, I give the overall unit a D+. I mean, there's just more questions than there are answers at this point, outside of Shi Smith. Because as much as I like Leggett, 9 for 80 and a touchdown last year, it's not like he blew everybody away. I mean, it's not like he was, some crazy threat. And again, the question is with Shi, who steps up behind him? I do like Leggett. I like his potential. I think he's a speed guy. We heard a lot about him in fall camp last year. I think he's a guy, again, that could break out and be a big-time playmaker for you. Again, what do Ortre Smith and Josh Vann do? What type of impact could a DeCarrion Joyner have? But, again, let me just say something and call a spade, guys. When we're seriously talking about DeCarrion Joyner, a quarterback up until last year, and really, played quarterback last year. He went back to quarterback after week 1. When we're seriously talking about DeCarrion Joyner, and I know he's a great athlete, but the dude's not a wide receiver. But when we're talking about him being like the second or third option, that's how you know there aren't a lot of great options at the moment. Okay? Again, just call it for what it is. There are more questions than answers with this group. There's not a lack of talent with this group. Not a lack of talent, in my opinion. There's not. If guys like Ortre Smith, Josh Vann, hey, Chad Terrell, haven't even talked about him, Leggett, maybe Chavis Dawkins and Randricus Davis are finally healthy, but I'm not going to hold my breath. But if those guys play up to their abilities, Wyman Powers, there's talent on this team. There's talent in this receiver group. And again, you know what Shi Smith can do. I think Shi Smith could be a 1,000-yard receiver. I really do. I think he could. I think he has the talent for it. Will he do it, though? A lot of guys with potential in this group, but we just haven't seen the production we need to see. We just haven't seen it. Again, you returned 2 guys that had over 100 receiving yards last year. The rest of them under. You only return 4 receiving touchdowns amongst the receiver group. That's not very many. Bryan Edwards had 6 by himself. So you're going to have to fill that role. I don't think Shi Smith alone will fill that role either. That's why I said, again, it's so important to have that number 2 guy step up. So, again, I give the unit a D+. This is probably, again, the weakest group of wide receivers South Carolina's had in a real long time when you think about it. I mean, when you really think about it, I'd have to think maybe 2015? Probably 2015. Because, you had Cooper. God, I don't even remember who else you had outside of Coop, to be honest. And that'll tell you right there. God, I don't even remember. Was KJ Brent still there? Hell, I don't know. I really don't know. Anyways, yeah, that's probably the last time. But it's been a while. South Carolina has been known to always pretty much have good wide receivers, have some damn good wide receivers. So I think this is certainly one of the biggest question marks in the offense, no doubt. And it'll be interesting to see, again, what happens. Again, I think there's a lot. I give them a D+. Right now, I give them a D+ for the grade. But I think there's a lot of potential in this group. I think there's a lot of potential, no doubt. Lots of potential in this group. But that's just what it is, potential. We got to see it pan out in the field. So it'll be interesting to see how those questions, what answers do we get to our many, many questions we come in the season with. I'm very intrigued to find out. All right. Let's talk news and notes, get near listener questions, and get this interview. News and notes, Stephon Gilmore making the 99 Club. Congratulations, Stephon Gilmore. A little golf clap for you, sir. On Madden 21 that's coming out, Stephon Gilmore rated a 99 overall. I think very deserving. He's the best defensive back in the NFL. Very, very excited about that. As you guys know, it is preseason magazine season. That's one of my favorite times. I'm actually very excited to announce also that next week, and I'm making this announcement so late in the show, but next week, I will be giving my official season predictions, and I will have Phil Steele of his magazine. We all know Phil Steele's magazine, I would hope. Phil Steele will join me on one of the shows next week, probably on the Thursday show, and Brett Cianca. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. If I'm not, you'll hear it correctly on the interview and on the show next week. But Brett will join me on the Monday show. He is of Pick Six Previews. I'm very excited to have both those guys join me. Both very well respected. They do a great job with their, with their magazine, stuff like that. And again, I don't know why I'm making this announcement this late in the show, but I am. But anyways, it is preseason magazine season. Phil Steele naming a bunch of Gamecocks to preseason accolades to his preseason teams. 7 Gamecocks selected the preseason All-SEC team by Phil Steele. I'll go down the list here. Offensive lineman Sadarius Hutcherson, second team. Defensive back J.C. Horn, second team. Defensive back Israel Mukuamu, second team. Linebacker Ernest Jones, third team. Tight end Nick Muse, third team. Wide receiver Shi Smith, fourth team. And defensive lineman Kingsley Enagbare, fourth team. He also listed Israel Mukuamu as a fourth-team preseason All-American. So, pretty high regard there for Israel Mukuamu. Overall, I don't have any beef with these. I'm pretty content with all of it. I maybe would have had Jamie Robinson on the fourth team, preseason All-SEC team. But, this is what I want to talk about earlier, though. Everybody commenting saying, why is Shi Smith fourth team? What in the world? Like, that's such disrespect. And I get it. We're Carolina fans, and we can be homers at times and stuff like that. But, guys, stop for a sec. What has Shi Smith done to deserve better than that? I mean, seriously. What really has Shi Smith done? And I'm not trying to dog Shi Smith, but, like, when you're making a preseason All-SEC team, there's a lot of good wide receivers in the SEC. Breaking news. Breaking news. There's a lot of good wide receivers in the SEC. So, Shi Smith being fourth team, I mean, like I said, his stats last year, 489 yards and 2 touchdowns. He didn't set the world on fire or anything. So, the fact he's on an All-SEC team, period, I would say is a thumbs up from me. But again, 7 Gamecocks into the preseason All-SEC by Phil Steele. You have Mukuamu in the fourth team preseason All-American list, which is super dope. And then also, Pick Six Previews, which I'm going to get a lot more into his projections, stuff like that. They are picking South Carolina to finish 6th in the SEC East. 6th. Oof is my comment to that. Oof. I'll go down the list. He's got Florida finishing first, which is very interesting in itself. Georgia at 2, Tennessee at 3, Kentucky at 4, Missouri at 5, South Carolina at 6, and Vanderbilt at 7. Ouch. Just ouch. That's all I can say is ouch. Moving on. Some other news. Mike Gillespie, good buddy of mine, does a great job with the local sports media here in Columbia. Report from him. It's just a rumor right now, but apparently there's been a proposal made to have an 8-game SEC season plus a rivalry game, which let me get this tweet here so I know exactly. I don't want to misquote. Okay. Source inside the SEC tells me an 8-game conference schedule plus an option to play a team's non-conference rivalry game is a proposal being considered for football season. Ray Tanner on Sports Talk this week, quote, "We'll do whatever we can to maintain the rivalry." This isn't really surprising to me. I thought the thought process, or just the concept of having a season but not playing your rival, that's especially when it's in-state, just seemed it was puzzling to me. I didn't understand it. So I think it's smart that the SEC kind of wised up on this. I listen, at this point, I'm not picky. I just want football. I know a lot of people say, hey, what do you think about this proposal? That anything that gives us football, I am a fan of. But I think playing the rivalry games is smart because, listen, again, like I said before, if South Carolina can travel to Gainesville to play Florida, South Carolina can go to Clemson to play Clemson. And like, there's no that reasoning to me. You know, Georgia can play Georgia Tech. Florida can play Florida State. Louisville can play Kentucky. You know, it just – I don't know. I think that original proposal, I'm glad they're kind of wising up on it, if you will. We'll see, obviously, what happens. I'm sure there will be a lot more conversations and a lot of different things come out, but I think it's good. I think it's smart. I think the rivalry game will happen. Like I said on the show Monday, I think it will happen. I'd be shocked if it didn't happen, but I do think it will happen. So – good to see that news there. Because, again, like I said on Monday's show, I joke about, I don't want to, spare me of the 28-point loss. And, I do say that. But at the same time, it'd just be weird to have a season without the rivalry game. And, guys, honestly, from a content creator perspective, from my perspective, I want Carolina Clemson week. Like, I want it. I want to shit talk to Clemson fans, even if we lose. I want that. So, bring it on. Recruiting news really quickly, by the way. Something I didn't get to on Monday's show because it came out later on Sunday. George Wilson II, Gamecocks picking up a big-time commit. 4-star defensive end George Wilson II, 6'5", 214, Green Run High School, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 2021 prospect, obviously. He chose the Gamecocks over Arizona State, Connecticut, Georgia Tech, Indiana. I think there's a longer list. It's probably more schools. I mean, it goes down the list. North Carolina, Ole Miss, Oregon, Penn State, Pittsburgh, Syracuse. Yeah, so he had a long list. A lot of schools offered him. This is a really, really good pickup for South Carolina. Obviously, a guy, you take a look at the measurables, 6'5", 214. He'll put on a lot of weight. He'll probably put on a good 30, 40 pounds when he gets to college of good weight, obviously muscle. But you take a look at his film, a guy with a lot of burst, a lot of speed, a true speed pass rusher off the edge. And again, I've talked about this 2021 class a decent amount and my skepticism of it and my worries about it. And I still think South Carolina is probably going to finish between 30 and 40. I think finishing inside the top 30, unless you really go on a run of getting these blue chippers, is probably not going to happen. But getting these type of guys is much needed. It's an absolute. It's a huge shot in the arm, honestly, for the fan base too. He now becomes George Wilson II is the highest rated commit in the 2021 class for South Carolina. And again, South Carolina gets a really good one. He chose South Carolina again over UNC. I know that was one of his schools, and I said it on social media. I was like, my heart could not handle us losing another prospect to North Carolina. So, again, good job by Muschamp, the entire staff, to get this kid in there. Again, 6'5", 214, will add on some weight, but he is a true speed rusher off the edge, and you need those in the SEC. We all know that. These are the type of guys you need to get after the quarterback. So, again, very, very good pickup, a guy I'm excited about. And, guys, one thing I wanted to mention as well, we are adding 2 or 3 recruiting guys. So, recruiting coverage and recruiting news will increase. You guys know me, and I don't want to necessarily apologize because you already know this about me, but I'm not necessarily a die-hard recruiting guy like a lot of you are and some people are. So I'm reaching out. We're going to be adding recruiting guys. We're going to talk more recruiting. I promise. I promise you we're going to talk more recruiting. So I just want to throw that out there. But, yeah, really good pickup. I mean, that kid's a really good prospect. Again, Virginia Beach, Virginia, you go out of the state. And, again, these are the type of guys you're going to have to land. You're going to have to land these type of guys in this class because, again, I've talked about it before, the in-state talent kind of lacking this year. The in-state talent's lacking, so you're going to have to go out of the state and get these blue chippers. And, again, a very, very good pickup, 4-star prospect out of Virginia Beach, Virginia. All right. Let's get into the listener questions. Have a lot of good listener questions to get to. I want to start with Brennan_Smith 47. Brennan_Smith 47 says, opinions on Mike Wyman. Mike Wyman, yeah, man. Very excited for Mike Wyman. A guy that obviously coming in with a lot of hype. Was a very big pickup for South Carolina. 4-star prospect, 6'2", 188, out of the state of North Carolina. Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to be a guy that will have the opportunity to make an immediate impact. There's no question. He's going to have that opportunity. Again, very highly regarded prospect, big-bodied kid, very physical. I am excited for what Mike Wyman can do for this South Carolina football team, no question. So I think he's certainly a freshman to watch. Another question from Brendan Smith. Do you think Josh Vann will break out this year? Because I think he will. I certainly hope so. If I had to pick between Ortre and Josh Vann, I will say I'd pick Josh Vann. Just because, again, maybe I was a little unfair earlier because I just don't know physically what he can do. I don't know what his health situation is. Man, I'd like to think Josh Vann will break out. I really do. I would like to think Josh Vann is going to break out. A kid, like I said, his highlight tape, his film just jumped out at you from high school. And again, you might say, oh, well, it's high school. This dude was making circus catches. Like, we have not seen that at all since he got on campus. So I'm hoping we see that a few times this fall for sure. Cut Up Gentleman, what's Dak's role this year? Big player or depth filler? Well, I'll tell you this. I think if we're considering Dak Joyner a big play guy, I'm very worried about the rest of the wide receiver group. Because you're telling me a guy that's played quarterback his entire time at South Carolina is not a wide receiver. You're telling me he's going to come in and automatically become one of our biggest big play threats at wide receiver? I think that speaks a lot more to the rest of the wide receivers than it speaks to how good Dak Joyner is. Now, listen, he's an athlete. I hope they get him the ball in space. I'm not saying he's going to be a depth filler like he's just riding the bench the whole season. Because I think selfishly, we all want to see him get the ball in his hands. He's a guy with undeniable athletic ability. But I also don't think he's going to be a guy you're seeing out there consistently in the rotation. Because I think most of the time you're going to see South Carolina running out there with probably 3 wideouts. I think it'll be very rare we're out there with 4 and 5 wideouts. I doubt it. So I don't think you're going to see Dak Joyner out there a ton. But I'm really just hoping they find creative ways to get him the ball in space. I do. Again, I'm not expecting him to be like the most crisp route runner. You know what I mean? Like the best wide receiver or anything like that. But he's a guy that could take a bubble screen to the house. Like, he has that type of athletic ability. So I think somewhere in the middle. I'm not going to consider him. I don't think he'll be like a big-time playmaker for us, but he's also not going to ride the bench all year. He's not going to be a depth filler. I think he will have his opportunities to use his athleticism. At least I hope. So, whack_17. Do you think Leggett will have a huge year? I think he's primed for it. I think he's primed for a really good year. Huge year? I'm hoping Shi Smith the one that has the huge year. But a very solid year? Because listen. After this season, you lose Shi Smith. So you better find that 2 guy because he's going to be your 1 guy next year. And that could be a guy like Xavier Leggett. So, yeah, no, I'm excited for him. I think the potential's high. I think he's a guy that could be a big-time playmaker for us for sure. Landor_Walters. Who should get the number 3 spot? I think Shi and X are 1 and 2. Taking a Xavier. Shi and Xavier 1 and 2. Who gets the 3? I think it's Josh Vann right now. If I had to guess, I think it's Josh Vann right now. I think he'll be the 3 guy unless one of these freshmen emerges, which could certainly happen. I think certainly Powers or Wyman, it could certainly happen. So, but I'm going to guess Josh Vann right now will be the 3 guy, at least starting out. Scott W. Lawson, besides the wide receivers, which running back do you see contributing the most receiving yards? Quan White is really good out of the backfield. I think Quan White could be a guy. I think Marshawn Lloyd's a good pass catcher. That's tough. I think probably Lloyd. I just think he's going to be the feature player. I think he's going to be the feature back. So I'm going to go with Marshawn Lloyd. S.Rush7. Does the pandemic season guarantee another year for Muschamp? No. If we lose every game, he's not coming back. I don't care what pandemic's going on. If he loses every single game, no. So there's no guarantees. Does it make it more likely he'll be back? Yes. Does it guarantee anything? No, not in my opinion. Again, S.Rush7. Thoughts on the basketball newcomers? Javon Benson, Patrick Israel, etc. Yeah, again, Jacobi Wright on the show today. Very excited for the class that Frank Martin's brought in. I like where Carolina basketball is at right now. I think they're trending up. Now, you got to do it on the floor. We all know how big of a season this will be, assuming it gets played. We all know how big of a season this will be. This should be a tournament team, in my opinion. But, I feel good overall about the guys that Frank Martin is bringing in. Last question from Instagram, at least. Ramsey Smith 643. How do you think Josh Vann will do this season? Again, it's tough to predict because I'm not depending on Vann. You know what I mean? Like at this point, it's like I'm not depending on Josh Vann. I think he'll have probably another pedestrian year, maybe 300 yards, maybe a touchdown or two. But unfortunately, I don't think he'll live up to his expectations. Maybe I'll be wrong, but right now, that's what I'm predicting. So let's jump into your questions from Twitter. Terrence Harris, which receiver will have the most yards and catches? It's Shi Smith easily, I think. Which receiver will have the most touchdowns? It's Shi Smith. It's just, how can you pick anyone else? I mean, how can you realistically pick anyone else? Solo Bowen, what receiver do you think will make the biggest jump in yards? That's a very good question. From the stats last year, who will have the biggest jump yardage-wise? I think Leggett, because he only had 9 catches for 80 yards last year. I think he'll probably have the biggest jump. I could see him having a 400 or 500-yard season. I really could. So I think it'll be Xavier Leggett, although I do think Shi Smith will have a big jump, but I think the biggest jump will definitely be Leggett. Last question here. Michael Cavalier. I'm expecting Ortre Smith to be back healthy and to have a breakout year to complement Shi Smith. Josh Vann needs to step up. Joyner needs to also have tons of options with his athleticism, like a Farrah Cooper-esque option. Dude, listen, I hope you're right. I hope you're right on Ortre because, again, he has so much talent. He has so much natural ability. His build, man, you can't teach that. You can't teach 6'4", 220, bro. You can't teach it. I agree with you. Josh Vann's got to step up. Joyner. There's a lot of guys. This entire core group needs to step up. It isn't just one guy. All of them do. Shi Smith's got to step up. Shi Smith's got to be better, in my opinion. He's a number one guy. You know, he's got to step up. So I think you make good points, and it'll be interesting. I mean, there's a lot of names, but there aren't a lot of, like, dudes. A lot of names and not a lot of dudes. That's the problem right now. So, again, a lot of questions that'll be answered this season from that group, no doubt. All right, got a fantastic interview. 3-star prospect, Gamecock commit, guard Jacobi Wright. We had a fantastic conversation, again, just about, you know, his recruitment in South Carolina, why he chose the Gamecocks, relationship with Frank Martin, the overall Carolina basketball program. A great convo. Jacobi was an awesome kid, awesome dude. I know I, for one, am very, very excited to see him in Garnet and Black. So sit back, relax, enjoy. It's all brought to you by our friends over at SeatGeek once again. Again, guys, go download the SeatGeek app. Go to SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code SPURSUP. You're going to save $20 off your first purchase. Again, sports are coming back, and eventually we're going to have fans in the stands. When you want your tickets, SeatGeek is the way to go. Nobody's scalping anymore. You're doing everything online. You're doing everything through your phone. You can go on their app or their website, and they make the process super simple and super easy for you. Again, they're going to make sure you get the best bang for your buck. You're going to know exactly where you're sitting, what you're paying, what the person next to you is paying. They're going to give you a deal score. So you know, hey, am I overpaying? Am I getting a steal? Should I go ahead and cop these tickets? Whatever. They're going to take care of all that for you. So all you got to do is pick your tickets, click the buy button, enjoy your event. It's stress-free. It's easy. You'll have that peace of mind when you click the buy button. So, again, you can just go enjoy the event. And I'm giving you $20 off. Take that $20, go buy some refreshments, go put some gas in the car, whatever you got to do. Again, that's our friends at SeatGeek. Go download the SeatGeek app or go to SeatGeek.com. Use the promo code SPURSUP. That's SPRSUP to save $20 off your first purchase. Enjoy this interview with Gamecocks commit Jacobi Wright. All right, joining us today on the Spurs Up Show, 2021 3-star guard at Legacy Charter High School. He's out of Greenville, South Carolina, the 7th-ranked player in the state of South Carolina, and, of course, a Gamecocks commit. I'm very, very pleased to be joined by Jacobi Wright. Again, South Carolina commit. Jacobi, really appreciate you taking the time, man. It's a pleasure to have you on.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, Jacobi, I want to start obviously from the beginning with you. Obviously, your love of the game of basketball. Obviously, you've turned yourself into a top recruit in the state of South Carolina. Like I said, 7th-ranked prospect in the state. Just talk about, kind of your relationship with the game when you first started playing basketball, and I guess what's kind of led you to this point now, if you will.
I started playing basketball around the age 5 or 6. My dad put the ball in my hands, and ever since then, I just kept working at it, kept working, and the love for it grew as I kept getting better. After that, I'm just keep going and keep getting better.
When did it click for you that you knew that it was something that, it wasn't just a hobby, like it was something you could really take to the next level, if you will?
Probably my ninth grade year of high school, my freshman year, coming in on varsity. And I was producing, so I was like, man, I can really go somewhere with this. I'm producing now. I can only imagine if I just keep working.
So obviously you've had a long list of you take a look at your offer list. I mean, it's a ton of different schools. Again, you commit to South Carolina, I think, what was it, a couple weeks ago or a little bit over a month ago, something like that. You commit to South Carolina, obviously, though, and again, a long list of offers. You just talk about the overall recruiting process for you, what that's been like. I know that's something that can be, kind of stressful on guys because you have so many people reaching out to you, so many different people from different directions pulling at you. Just talk about what the overall recruiting process has been like for you.
It was a little stressful. I ran into some things I didn't expect, but I had a good group of people by my side, my family, some coaches that I went to for advice when, sometimes I didn't know what to say or, how to handle certain situations. But, I try to take it day by day. When you get a lot of schools, the coach's job is to, recruit you, try to get you to the school. So with a lot of coaches hitting you up, you just try to weed out or like figure out which school you fit the best at, which coaches are taking the time to learn more about you and care about you as a person and player. And I think South Carolina really did that. They took the time to learn about my family, get to know us, and I really felt like I fit there. So just all around, I feel like that was the best school for me throughout all my choices. And I could have waited a little longer to make my decision. Could have got some more schools, but I felt like South Carolina was everything I wanted in the school, so I went ahead and committed.
Now, I'm just curious, did you grow up a South Carolina fan? Or I guess what was your familiarity like with South Carolina basketball growing up as a young kid and just like I said, going into the middle school and then high school ranks? Like what was your familiarity? Because obviously you came up when South Carolina 2017 made that Final Four run. I'm sure you saw that. Like what did you know, I guess, about Gamecock basketball while you were being recruited?
I can't say I was a fan growing up. I can't say like they were one of my favorite teams, but I did definitely know about them. I'm from South Carolina, so it's kind of hard to go without knowing about the school. Right. They did have that Final Four run. That was big and kind of my decision as well, just knowing that they've made it to a Final Four. I want to make it that far in the tournament, maybe even win. So just knowing that they're capable of getting there and they have that experience is big, just knowing that maybe I can help them get back there. And I know a little bit about Coach Frank Martin, just like I know he coached at Kansas State, something about him before that, and then he came to South Carolina. But other than that, I knew a few players, but that's really it.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Frank Martin really quickly. Obviously, coming into his 9th season, very well respected. South Carolina fans love him, but he's very well respected just in the game of college basketball. I'd say one of the better coaches in college basketball. Just talk about your interactions with him. We all know his coaching style, very fiery guy, very aggressive, gets after it, but loves his players, take care of the players. Like you talk to anybody that played for him, I mean, they speak extremely highly of him. But just talk about your interactions with Frank Martin and how you feel like. Do you feel like your game, your personality fits into, I guess, his coaching style?
Right. The first time he came and saw me was actually when I was in 9th grade at high school, and that kind of came back up when he came to my school this year. He was like, I look kind of familiar, and he watched our practice, and I did really good that practice, played really well, and I think I left a good impression on him, good second impression on him. And after that, we kind of started communicating more through text because he was like, he really liked how I played. Some things he saw that day that he told me, I remember defensively, I was picking up my man full court, which is just what we do at our school. And South Carolina's big on defense. So he said I really fit with that. Like he liked my energy on defense and just how I was communicating out there. When he's looking at a point guard, he said he's looking for a coach on the court, somebody who's loud, that can communicate, just a good people's person, get along with all his teammates. So he kind of saw that in me as well. And then he came to a game in Columbia. We played in Columbia. He came to watch that game. He kind of liked what I did there. And then after that, I just got on campus a few times, a few visits. And that's where he kind of learned more about my family and things of that nature. And, we just kept building that relationship, talking through the phone more. And he finally gave me that call saying that he would love for me to play for him. And we just kept going from there, and I chose South Carolina.
For sure. I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, Jacoby, but just talk about, when you went, I guess you went on your visit and everything, and the relationship with Frank Martin sticks out, but just what separated South Carolina and made the decision so easy for you to commit to the Gamecocks?
Just over time, some things that stuck out to me and my family was, one, it's my home state, and I take a lot of pride in being from South Carolina. So just having that across my chest is big for me. The coaching staff, from Coach Frank to one of the main coaches that recruited me was Coach Bruce Shingler. They great people. My parents love them, so that played a big part in the decision. The SEC is a great conference. I'll be on TV sometimes. I'll be playing in front of a big stage, big arenas. So that's just exciting for any player, I think, to play in that conference. And Colonial Life Arena. I went to the game against LSU. And the crowd was just amazing. The energy was just amazing. It was up there. So, I really just like that. And, it's a lot of other small things like school and all that other stuff that just played a part in having my major and just the environment. But I just really feel like Columbia and USC is somewhere where I can call home for my next 4 years, and I'm just comfortable being there.
Yeah, you mentioned one thing, Jacoby, I want to ask you about. Obviously, being a guy from the state of South Carolina, and like I mentioned, you're the 7th-ranked prospect, really highly regarded prospect. I've asked former players about this too, but obviously, again, you being a guy right now in the state. Listen, South Carolina is surrounded by blue bloods. We all know that with Duke, UNC, and they're going to get their guys. But do you think someone like you choosing South Carolina could have a trickle down effect as far as getting more guys? And it's not that South Carolina never gets. You think of some of the greatest basketball players ever play at South Carolina were from the state. But do you think there could be sort of like a trickle-down effect to getting even more guys to stay home and, like you're saying, take pride in your home state and choose South Carolina versus leaving the state and going elsewhere?
Hopefully. I mean, that's just kind of – I had the choice. I could have, left, went somewhere else. But I feel like South Carolina is just – if you're from the state, I feel like you can't really go wrong with going to, South Carolina, staying in state, just having that pride. And, it's a big school, and you get to play against a lot of other big schools. So I feel like, playing for your home state, you can show out and prove that, South Carolina produces great basketball players, and South Carolina can become one of the best college basketball teams. And when I'm recruiting, like, these next few years, or helping and recruiting players from the state, we're going to use that to help us get those players.
For sure. So I want to ask you about your game specifically, Jacoby. Obviously, again, you've been a guy playing at a high level for a while. You talked about 9th grade. I mean, you were contributing. Where do you feel like your game has evolved the most, I guess, going through the high school ranks? Like, what are the things you've been focusing on, working on most to, prepare yourself for the SEC level, the college level? Because, again, I'm sure that's been a goal of yours for a while. What were the things you've focused on over the last 2, 3, 4 years as far as your game specifically?
I kind of have 3 bigger things that I think stick out to me. One is just my body. The SEC is and I didn't know I was going to be in the SEC, but now that I know, my body is big, taking care of my body, becoming stronger, guys in college, more athletic, way stronger. So just trying to prepare myself for that as early as I can, becoming more explosive, more athletic. So that's one. My leadership. Going into college as a point guard, you got to be a good leader and be able to lead older guys. Coming in as a freshman, it's not easy to lead those older guys that have been there, but that's just something I'm working on, being more vocal. So, all my teammates can hear me on the court, especially when the gyms get loud, and, it'll be very loud in college. And then just scoring off the dribble. That's another thing I've been working on from all 3 levels, getting to the rim, mid-range, and 3-pointers. It's probably just something I've been working on a lot, along with defense. Defense is always important, especially at Carolina. For
sure. I know you mentioned earlier kind of what Coach Frank Martin pitched to you as far as your role, but did he go into any specific detail, kind of where he sees you, what he expects, the type of player he expects you to be, like how he expects you to fit into their system, if you will, or?
He hasn't said anything specific about like roles yet. I think that's kind of far off, knowing that I still have another year of high school. But
right, for sure.
Some things that he did tell me was I definitely have to be vocal, like loud on the court, be a coach on the court. He told me that he likes his guards being able to shoot off the dribble within the offense. So you're playing inside the offense, but being able to shoot off the dribble and be a good catch and shoot shooter as well is big for him. And defense is huge. You know, South Carolina focus on defense. So those are just some things that he told me that maybe I could focus on while I'm in the gym, or just keep working on, that it will make it easier for me to fit into this playing style.
For sure. I'm curious, were you able to make any relationships with any, like, the current guys on the roster? I know, again, you know, there were some young guys that contributed this year, and South Carolina, you know, I think, you know, again, this is just assuming everything. The world is normal, if you will, but, you know, right. There are really high expectations for this year's team. I think it's certainly a tournament team when you take a look on paper. So really excited about that. But were you able to develop, like, any relationships with any of those guys that are on the current team, maybe some of your future teammates, if you will?
Yes, sir. So Jalen McCreary, he was a freshman last year. He went to the high school that I attend to now. So me and him have a pretty good relationship. You know, we talk a good amount, pretty building that relationship. I talked with Trey Hannibal a little bit. He was a freshman last year. We don't have a great relationship, but I've talked to him. And some of the incoming freshmen I've talked to, I played against Javon Benson this year. So, you know, we follow each other. And Patrick Ariel, we should be building that relationship. So I'm just some of the younger guys. You know, I follow AJ Lawson. He followed me back, but I've never talked to a lot of those other guys too much. For sure. Well, you'll definitely become very close acquaintances as soon as you step foot on campus. I'm curious, like you said, you went and visited and saw South Carolina play against LSU, and I was at that game. Can confirm you are right. It was a packed house. That was a fun, rowdy environment. But you were able to take a look at that game and, you know, see it up close and, you know, watch SEC basketball. When you watch that, I mean, obviously, again, you haven't been there yet, so – you know, you don't have that firsthand experience, but the game is definitely going to speed up. And I'm sure you know that. And I'm sure you've had so many people in your ear talking to you about, you know, this is what's going to happen. This is what to look out for. But is there anything specific for you that you watched that game or watched other games and said, is there anything like stuck out to you that like, hey, this is going to be a part of my game that I really want to focus on, or just this is going to be a part of the game period that, you know, I want to make sure I really hone in on because it seems like this is really important at that level? After that game, honestly, it was eye-opening, like the bodies of even the guards, they're really filled out. And I know like some of those guys have been in college for 3 years, 4 years, but I just saw it's very physical, and I just know I really needed to improve my body, become stronger, because even going to the rim, you know, you're going to get hit. You might not get the foul every play. So that's just something I know I got to work on, becoming stronger and more athletic. Like you said, the game speeds up. I need to keep getting faster. And that was just kind of something that stuck out to me that game. And then just being able to knock down open shots off the catch and shoot. You know, sometimes shot clock might be running down, or longer guys coming towards you. You got to be able to get your shot off pretty quickly.
For sure. I was going to say, it's when you have a guy like Trey Hannibal out there, that'll that dude's built like a running back. So he is not built like most guards, for sure.
Definitely not.
I'm going to get you out of here, Jacobi. But last thing, what's the one thing you would say? If you can narrow it down to one thing, what's the one thing you would say you're most looking forward to about your time at South Carolina?
Just competing and becoming the best player in person I can. Just looking forward to getting better every day, getting in there with the team, becoming a great basketball player and a person as well, just becoming a better person, getting my grades, keeping my grades up. So just the college experience as a whole, I guess. You know, basketball, of course, I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, I was going to say winning a lot of games for sure.
Definitely winning.
Winning a lot of games. Jacobi, really do appreciate you taking the time, man. I know I speak for all Gamecock fans when I could say I'm really looking forward to your next 3 to 4 years. It should be a blast. Really glad you chose South Carolina, and really, really excited to get you in Columbia. So let's do it again definitely soon. Again, very excited to see you in Garnet and Black, my friend.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So for Jacobi Wright, I'm Chris Phillips. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on the episode of the Spurs Up Show.